Back on CBS Sports HQ, taking a look at an updated AFC playoff picture. A couple of results with big-time implications on Saturday night. The Steelers dragging the Bengals into an 8-7 slog. 8-6 was really the going rate coming into the week. You'll see plenty of 8-7 coming out. Maybe some 9-6. That's what we see next to the Buffalo Bills' name as they move inside of that playoff picture. Now the 6th seed at 9-6 with 2 games to play. Winnable matchups, including a head-to-head with Miami in Week 18. Emery Hunt back in the mix, joining us as well. John Breach to break down what these wins and losses meant moving forward. And let's start right there with the Buffalo Bills, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat there in the final seconds, John, with a big kick by Tyler Bass. Let's not even entertain the what if he didn't. Let's see what this meant moving forward, because we're looking at an inflated percentage, according to our sports line projection, to make the playoffs for these Bills. We're looking at a 6 seed right now. What did tonight mean for them?
Tonight was everything. This was the one game you couldn't afford to blow. And even though they almost did, they didn't. So now what does this look like? We've got them up at a 70% chance of making the playoffs. And that's because they're one of the few teams in the wild card race who actually control their own fate. If the Bills win out, they're in. So all you got to do if you're Buffalo, you beat the Dolphins, you're in, and then you win next week against the Patriots, you're in. So win those 2 games, you were in the playoffs. And the other thing this win does for you is that it keeps you alive for the division title. If the Dolphins stumble in one of their next 2 games, they lose to the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday or the Baltimore Ravens in Week 17, that opens the door for a Week 18 showdown where the Bills and Dolphins are playing each other for the AFC East title. So not only is the wild card in play, but now the division title is in play. So this was an absolutely huge win for the Buffalo Bills.
And if you're the Bills, you're already fist pumping because of what happened earlier in the evening with the Steelers beating the Bengals. That was the one roadblock, I thought, for Buffalo to clear their way to get into this top 7, in which they did. So now, because they lost to the Bengals, they have an advantage over what Cincinnati has. I don't think Cincinnati has won a division game yet within the AFC North. So Correct. They have played themselves, is essentially out of this playoff picture. But Buffalo getting this win, combined with the Steelers beating the Bengals, really helps them jump from wherever they was pregame to 70% now. I think they're going to stay at least 6.
Well, I wouldn't be remiss if we did not at least pick at the brain of our resident Bengal fan here in John Breach, as well as our playoff prognosticator. Take me through what you saw in this game before you tell me what it meant. Did it look like a game plan of a team playing with everything on the line in your eyes? Because, yes, it's going to come back down to earth at some point for a quarterback of Jake Browning's ilk, and it seemed that this was that moment. But from a game plan standpoint, what did you make of the game tonight for Cincinnati, and is all hope lost following this massive loss?
I will say the offense wasn't great, but we've seen it all the time with backup quarterbacks. They'll have a 2, 3, 4 game magical run before they come crashing back to earth. And let's not forget, in Jake Browning's first start against the Steelers in November, he struggled. And a lot of us attribute that to the fact that it was his first start, but maybe this defense just knows how to slow him down. For me personally, though, it was not the offense that was horrible. It was the defense looked like it fell asleep at the wheel. They looked like they absolutely underestimated Mason Rudolph, his ability to throw downfield, really his ability to throw the football at all. They just didn't look like they were ready for these deep shots that the Steelers kept taking. The Steelers burnt them with those, as we saw George Pickens score 2 long touchdowns. Now, the unfortunate thing for the Bengals is they're basically going to need a Christmas miracle at this point to get in the postseason. They're 8-7. They're down in the 10th spot. And then the problem for Cincinnati is their conference record is 3-7. You are not going to win any multi-game tiebreakers with that. The other problem with the Bengals is their division record, as Emery just mentioned, is 0-5. Hey, fun fact, guys. Since the NFL realigned its divisions in 2002, no team has ever lost 5 or more division games and made the playoffs. So the Bengals are not in a great situation. Now, if you want one little silver lining for the Bengals, here it is that you have wins over the Bills, the Colts, Jacksonville. So you have, if you get in the head-to-head tiebreaker there in the wild card at 10-7 with any of those teams, you're going to win it. So if you're a Bengals fan, you want the Texans to win the division, the AFC South. You want Jacksonville battling for that wild card because you have that head-to-head win over them and the Colts and the Bills. So that's it. You have a lot of good wins, but not enough conference.
What really bothered me about that loss was Zach Taylor, the former quarterback and his play calling in crucial situations inside the red zone. Fourth down play calls didn't really give Jake Browning a chance to have success and help them get into the end zone. They had an opportunity to really keep that game close against Pittsburgh and perhaps have a lead. And when you combine that with Jake Browning's mental lapses in ball games that we've seen over the last couple of weeks where he just throws a weird interception. They were driving down the field against Pittsburgh. He threw it to every one of the Steelers' defensive backs that was in the end zone. There was no white jerseys back there. And then you saw another pass. Probably should have gone to another option, gave him a chance to convert the first down, but he went toward the sideline to T. Higgins, didn't really give him an opportunity to put his feet down on the ground. So for me, Zach Taylor didn't help out his quarterback. He kind of came up small in a big game, a playoff game essentially here this evening. So that's kind of why they go from 6th to 10th right now in the playoff picture.
With the win for the Steelers, the playoff hopes go from minuscule to minute. I mean, it's not a massive jump forward in the expectation for this team, but we do have to prepare as if there is a chance if you're in that building for Pittsburgh. Mason Rudolph comported himself quite nicely, I will add, but you have your starting quarterback coming on the mend. Kenny Pickett reportedly going to be ready in the not-too-distant future. It makes an interesting decision for a staff that's had to make them throughout the season. Not the only staff that's had to make quarterback decisions. But, Emery, from where you're sitting right now, who gives the Steelers the best chance to keep those slim playoff hopes alive?
Brees just talked about it. He said when you bring in a backup quarterback, they have that 2 to 4 game stretch. That's
all you need.
We're at the beginning of Mason Rudolph's stretch, right? So you got to go with Mason Rudolph. I think that's the guy that gives them the great chance to win out and get into the postseason. Here's why. Because of his threat of the deep ball, it backs up the defense, which makes everything else operate seamlessly on offense. The run game is going to be better. The play-action pass game is going to be better. The intermediate passing game will be better. And let's not ignore his deep ball throwing, and which has reignited or reinvigorated George Pickens out there on the outside. He's getting deep. So we're going to expect them to get more weapons involved in the passing game because Rudolph's arm and his ability to throw the ball deep down the field just opens up the entire offense. It's a shame that it has now come at the back end of the season. But, man, you have a 2-game stretch. Breach talked about it where, hey, we're at the beginning of this stretch run for your backup quarterback. That's Robert Rudolph.
Yeah, Emery, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. I think you have to stick with Mason Rudolph here. And look, I mean, earlier this season, George Pickens was ready to quit the team because he wasn't getting any targets. Have you seen Deontay Johnson's body language in some of these games? Kenny Pickett just wasn't throwing him the ball. Things didn't get better with Mitchell Trubisky. And I think these receivers are talented, and all they wanted was a quarterback who would throw the ball down the field and give them a chance. And that is what we saw Rudolph do against the Bengals. And yeah, if you can you ride the hot hand. It's the end of the season. You play whoever you think can win. This was a huge, huge win today for the Steelers, and it was with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. He led your team to the second most offensive yards you've put up all season. So I can't imagine it would sit well with Steelers fans to have Rudolph go straight to the bench for this upcoming game against the Seahawks. So I would say there's a QB controversy, but I think you have to stick with Mason Rudolph too.
I would third that vote because, you know, it's Mason Rudolph on the offensive side. You know, defensively, Pittsburgh always going to be blitzing, you know.
No, why not? Oh, I just caught that. Man,
I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself. We got plenty more coming throughout the holiday weekend here on CBS Sports HQ. But for now, we say thank you to Emery Hunt, and we say thank you to John Breach for playing along with my Christmas dad jokes.
Missed the blitz pickup. I'm sorry.
Well, that's how you end up with a hurt quarterback with Mason Rudolph under center. Better pick up those blitzes. Only a couple weeks to do so, and big football out in front of the Bills, who are now the 6th seed at 9-6. Got to match up with the Pats at home, then taking a trip to MIA to decide likely a division.